Hello, economic students. Hey, I want to very quickly talk about the production possibilities curve. You've got a homework assignment in which you're dealing with the production possibilities curve. So I just want to make sure that this is clear to you what we're looking at. So let's get started real quickly. The production possibilities curve is also sometimes called the production possibilities frontier. So you'll hear it referred to as the PPF or the PPC even, using the abbreviation. Whether it's called the production possibilities curve or production possibilities frontier is irrelevant. It's the same thing. And it's basically just a model that simplifies the way that the economy works by limiting production to just two items. Now, those two items could be specific items, such as we could have a model that says, are we going to produce in our economy guns, or are we going to produce butter? Okay, those are the only two things we could produce. So we're going to break down our economy to either just guns or butter. Okay, or it might deal with more general types of products, and oftentimes you'll see it where the production possibilities curve is dealing with the production of either capital goods or consumer goods. Okay, so that there you're talking about not a specific product, but a type of product. Okay, but the key is it's breaking down the economy into the production of just two things. All righty, so it is based on the concepts of scarcity and opportunity costs. So let's say that we produce in our society only guns or butter. Those are the only things that we can produce. Well, the more of our resources that we put towards the development of guns will necessarily take away resources that we could otherwise use in the production of butter. So in this sense, the opportunity cost of making more guns is to make less butter. Or conversely, if we make more butter, that means that we're going to have an opportunity cost of making fewer guns. Okay, so scarcity. We can't have everything we want. Everything involves alternatives. In this case, we have an alternative between guns and butter, or between consumer goods and capital goods. Okay, and the opportunity cost is what you give up in order to devote your resources to that other item. Okay, so the production possibilities curve. And here's an example of one. And here we're using the idea of consumer goods or capital goods. Now remember from the discussion of the factors of production, a capital good is any man-made thing that is used in the production of a consumer good. That is, a capital good is used to produce something that you or I would want to buy at the store. You and I would not buy a capital good. Okay, that's used to make the things that we want to buy, actually, to make our lives a little bit better. And so we have the production possibilities curve. If we're using all of the available resources that we have in order to produce anything, we're going to fall, our production is going to fall somewhere on this line. This line is the absolute limit of what we can produce. And the line is also going to always be kind of bowing out. Okay, it's not going to typically be a straight line. It will bow out. And there's a reason for that. As you make more and more and more, as you devote more of your resources to the production of just one type of item, it's going to start using resources that are not really well suited to the item that you're using those resources for. Therefore, you get, as you devote more and more resources to the production of a single item, you're going to get less bang for your bucks. And this means that the resources that are used in the production here of consumer goods over here in this area are not efficient. That's not an efficient way to use those resources. Most of those resources could probably be better used in the production of capital goods. So usually we're going to want our production to be somewhere, more or less in the middle, because that's where we have a more efficient utilization of resources, where some resources are better used for the production of one type of item than for the other type of item. So again, if you're producing on this line, you're using all of your available resources. So at production point A, we're using all of our resources, but we're using more of our resources in the production of capital goods than we are in the production of consumer goods. area B, we're using all of our resources, and we're pretty even in using, about half of our resources going towards consumer goods and about half of our resources going towards capital goods. And here at point C, we're using more resources for the consumer goods, far fewer resources for capital goods. What about point D? What does this mean? Well, if we have production inside of the curve, that means we have some resources that are not being used, okay? So maybe, for example, we have a factory that's been temporarily shut down. Now that factory is sitting idle, so we are not producing at maximum capacity. Maybe we have some unemployed workers. So workers, of course, labor, that's one of the factors of production. So if we have people who are not working, that's going to push our production inside the curve. So anytime you have resources that are not being utilized, you're going to fall inside the curve. On the curve means all of your resources are being utilized. What about point E? What does that mean? Well, that means today we cannot produce at point E, because if we have full utilization of resources, we cannot go beyond this line. Okay, point E though, so we cannot produce at that point. However, we may be able to produce there in the future with economic growth. As the economy grows, as we get economic growth, this production possibilities curve will push out. And that's the goal, to have the production possibilities curve continually moving to the right. Okay. Now, one final point. When we talk about consumer goods and capital goods, capital goods, again, are those things that are used to make a consumer good. So if we're putting all of our production today into consumer goods, that means we're not making new capital goods. What does that mean for future production? Well, it means we're getting a lot of consumer goods today, but we're doing that at the expense of future production with new capital goods. Okay, so it's important that we always devote some of our resources to capital goods, because that's what facilitates economic growth. We use capital to be able to make new products that we want, okay, or to make the products that we want better. Okay, that's capital that is necessary for that. So if we're only making consumer goods, the economy is going to slow down and not grow very much, because you have to have capital goods in order to grow the economy. So then you might ask, well, gee, why don't we just then always produce way up here and really focus on capital goods? But there you have to remember, what's the point of that? The whole point of capital goods is to make something that you and I want, to make a consumer good. And if all we're doing is making capital, then we're really not making the stuff that people want, that make our lives more pleasant or more enjoyable. So you need to find that balance between immediate satisfaction of a consumer want or need versus future satisfaction of meeting even more consumer wants or needs. Okay, there's a fine balance there. So where's the best place to produce on the production possibilities curve? It's probably not at point C. It's definitely not between point C and this x-axis here. And it's also not up here at point A either, and definitely not as you get closer to the y-axis. You don't want to be producing up here. You typically want to be somewhere in the middle of that curve. So in this case, point B is probably the best place to be. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to be right smack in the middle. For some things, you might want to be more down here somewhere or more up here somewhere, but you definitely do not want to be up here or out here. That's not going to be meeting all your consumer needs or facilitating future growth for future needs. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop this discussion of the production possibilities curve, and hopefully this gives you a little bit more insight into completing the homework assignment that you were given a day or two ago. We'll talk to you later.